welcome to another video where we discuss our favorite cybersecurity tools for offensive and defensive security tactics. So today, what we're going to be discussing how to manage user accounts from the Linux terminal here. We're going to go over how to create users, change passwords, how to identify what users are on a Linux system using strictly the command line, and how to interpret certain configuration files that house user account information. So to start out, as I've mentioned in previous videos, in the far left of the terminal here, we're always prompted with our current user account that we're logged in as. And in Ubuntu, we can also see it at the top here. So the showdown is our current user, and then this section is the machine we're logged in to. That's important because we always need to keep track of who we're logged in as, and as you get into remoting into other machines, you need to be able to know what machine you're on, what user you're logged in as. So it's always mindful to keep track of that. And once you're logged into a system and you have a command line open, if you need to get additional information about that user, such as group information and permissions, the first command that's always good to run is ID. And what ID does, it gives you everything you need to know about what permissions this user has. If they're a sudoer, it gives you their user ID and their group ID along with their group memberships. So that is the ID command. It's a very good command to know. And in here, as I mentioned, group 27 is the sudo group, which this user is a part of, so it can run administrative commands. So that is the ID command. And now, how to check what users are on a server or on a Linux machine from a command line prompt here is there's a couple ways. One way that's pretty simple to do is we can, when you log in, you're always in your home directory, right? But if we go one directory back, we can see user accounts, the usernames of other accounts based off of their home directory here. So we have another user here, test user, right? And then my user, showdown. Another way is we can cat out the /etc passwd file. And what this will do, every Linux server and system has this file. If you're using a Linux-based machine, you're going to have this passwd file in there. And what this does, this is essentially kind of like a little database of all the user accounts on the machine. May they be like standard user accounts, such as my user account, or if they're service accounts specifically for running applications, such as the www data user, which this one is commonly used for Apache or Nginx web server applications. And why is that important? Well, as you can see under here, like our standard users, they have a home directory, they may have certain permissions that are higher in privilege than what an application will have. So it's always good that if you're gonna have like an endpoint service running where people are connecting to your machine, to have that service run under a low privilege system account, such as this www data user with a shell of no login, which prevents them from this account from logging in. And this is because, say, if this account were to be hacked or someone were to hack in due to a vulnerability in a web server, they'd be very limited to only what permissions this user account has, which the only permissions that account would have is to run the web server. It's not going to be an administrative user. and it's going to be limited on what files it can read. So that is why you would have system users and then standard users for everyday use. And another thing, since we're looking at the passwd file here, to interpret how this works, I mean, you can kind of think of this as like a spreadsheet or like a table here, if you're familiar with databasing. And we have these these colons here that just are acting as delimiters to separate each field here, or like each cell, right, of information. So the first section here is the username. The second section would be the password, but in modern day Linux machines, and this field generally is not used. You may see it if you're interested in CTFs. There might be a CTF out there where this might be populated just to keep you on your toes, but uh, in any system, the best practice is to never store passwords or password hashes in the pwd file. And I'll go over why as soon as we're finished discussing this. Um, so the third field here is the user ID, the group ID for the fourth. The fifth field is like a comment. So if we were to look at this service account up here for the OpenVPN, we can see that the fifth section here gives us a little bit more information about what NM means, right? So this is kind of just like a little section where you can have additional notes for that user if you choose to do so. And then of course, we have our home directory path, and then our default shell for when the user logs in, what application is going to run on login, and in this case for me it's the bin bash shell. So that is how you would read that. Now back to the password field here. The reason why you'd never want to store passwords in here is if we look at the file permissions of this passwd file, all users on the system can read this file. Even service accounts, everybody can, and you can modify this, but by default, all users are able to read this file here. So you could store a password in there and it would work, but you would never want to do it from a security standpoint because it's just leaving you a big gaping hole in your system for someone to steal a password or a credential. So it's always gonna be an X unless it's due to a misconfiguration. So that is that file. That's how you would enumerate user accounts on a Linux system here, very simply. And there's scripts out there that make this a little easier. Like I said, if you're interested in pen testing or vulnerability assessments, and you get a shell on a server, and you just want to run a script to run a report and figure out what users are on the account or users are on the server and what accounts might be vulnerable to certain privilege escalation attacks. There's plenty of tools out there for that, but just doing this manually, this is generally the easiest way to figure this stuff out. Now, to create users and delete users, that's fairly simple. So one command we need to run is the adduser command. And what this command does, if we print out the home information, it just adds a user account, and we could specify things such as where the home directory path is going to be, and the type of shell, and if we want to use encryption. But for today, we're just going to create a very basic normal user account. And if we look down here, we can also add a system account. And the system accounts are like service accounts, like those other accounts that we saw in the passwd file there, where they're generally not have any privileges besides just its standard user group and maybe a directory, a home path. But you know, this system user generally isn't for logging in like over like with a password or like how we're interacting with the computer here. It's specific for one use. So we will focus on adding a normal user. So how to add one, you just do sudo add user, and yes, you have to do it as sudo. It requires sudo privileges. And we will create a UID of, we'll do 1002, and we will create a home directory under the home slash, and then of course we'll create it, we'll give it a name, do test user, or I'll just do tester this time. We'll do tester instead of showdown, and then we will do for the shell slash bin up, and then of course we will set our name here. So this would be the command. So what we did, we do add user, UID, the home directory path, the shell, and then the username at the end here. And when we begin putting the stuff in, we have it's going to prompt us to give it a password. And then this is where we can give that user some additional information. So we'll do tester, we'll give like a room number of like 111, work phone, I don't know, 88888, whatever, home phone, right? And other, just do nothing. Yep. And now we have a new user. And we could see this user if we were to go back into the password file here, and we could see this user has been added to our user database file here. So that's how you would create a user. And now to log into that user from our current session, we will use the su command, which is switch user tester. And we put our password in, and we can also see now we have a tester home directory where we can store our files for this user account. And then if we were to do ID, we could see our user groups. Now to change change a password for another user, we'll exit out and go back to our showdown user, which has sudo privileges. We can change the password of a remote user or a different user on the account by using the password file or password command, and then the username of the account we want to change. And if we were to sign back in with the new password, we can do so. So that's how you would change. And you could do that for a local user by just running the passwd command in the current session without specifying a remote user. In this case, hold on. It's requesting a better password. Actually, no, it's all right. It went through. So yeah, that's how you would change the password for either another user or your own user. But just keep in mind, if you're going to do it for a different user, you need to have the privileges to do that. Now, let's say if we want to escalate this user account to have sudo rights, we would have to add this user to the sudo group. So we'll go back to our super user account, and we want to add sudo to a remote user. So to do that, we would use the mod user or user mod command here, and specify the flag -a capital G. And what that does, it means add group, we'll do sudo, and then our target account that we want to add to a group. And this will add tester to the sudo group, making tester an administrator. And then what we can do is we can log back into tester, verify our results. And now we can see by the prompt here that we can run commands as administrator. If we do ID, we can see that our account, tester account, is part of the sudo group. So that's how you would add, how you would do that. So now let's say if we want to delete a user account. We want to delete the tester account from the machine. To do that, we will now be using the del user, and it's as simple as del user and removing the and providing the username, and that will remove the account. And just to give you some more information about this command, we can print out the help menu here. And we can do other things like remove the home directory, remove all files, right? So that will also, if we specify that while we're deleting the account, we can also remove the home directory. And I mean, depending on your circumstances, you might want to do that, but in the enterprise, generally on enterprise servers, you don't really want to delete user accounts or especially user files. So mainly so you can have them backed up, or you have a history of who, of those user files. So generally in the enterprise, you would just disable the user account instead of deleting it. But for regular users, you might want to delete your Linux account. So that would be how you would delete it. And then of course, if we wanted to, we could just remove our those older directories by doing sudo rm-rf at a later point. And now we're back to a single user account. And if we also look under password file here, we can see that the tester has vanished from our password file here. So that is some of the basics on how you would manage user accounts from the Linux terminal. I hope this was informative, and I hope this kind of gives everybody a good idea of how to manage user accounts from the command line. And like always, everybody have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.